I've always suffered since I started my period when I was about 14, and I've always had extreme.
And then the second month, I felt weird not having a period.
Yeah.
And like I felt bloated.
I feel completely different. I still have hot flushes, but I don't have that depressive kind of feeling that, not myself. And that was the scariest thing.
Welcome back to another episode of Mom's Chronicles. And today I have with me Latoya. She's a mom of 2 and the owner of Think Nursery, a platform where parents can have support in early years education. Hi, Latoya. How are you?
Hi, Zara. I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So welcome to the podcast, Latoya. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I love a good chat.
Remember we met a while back when I was pregnant with Liam. Yeah, and we had a good chat. And I remember that you left a very good impression in me, like comforting one.
Oh,
and I was looking forward to see you again, but I didn't see you again in these classes. And obviously I want to have my son.
Yeah. And you looked well when you were pregnant, amazingly well, and you were due within like weeks.
Yeah, I was due within weeks, but I guess...
Amazing now.
Thank you. Oh, that's so kind of you. But I think when you have more than a kid, like you don't have time to sit and relax, right? You have to keep going, right? You have 2 kids, right?
I have 2 kids. Yeah. I have a 10-year-old and I have a 2-year-old.
Oh, wow. That's a huge gap, eh? You want to tell me a little bit about your motherhood journey?
Yeah, so... Initially, actually, I was one of those converted ones that was like, I didn't want children. I was quite career driven and I was like, I was going to focus on that. And then it got to a point I did traveling with my partner at the time, or my husband now, but I did a lot of traveling and we just got to a point where we wanted to extend our family. So I've got a condition called endometriosis. Mm-hmm. So with the condition, at that time, they're still learning about it. Exactly. But at that time, I had been diagnosed. Everything around it is, I just was a bit, taboo. And the stereotype with it was that you couldn't have children. It was, it made you infertile. Mm-hmm. So I went to the doctors. I did try for about a year.
But I think until now, there is no way to know for certain until you had the exploratory surgery, right?
So you can tell with the MRI, but they have to be an endometriosis specialist because otherwise they will not see it on the scan. So they can tell how extent, but with operation is how,
they
how
see
deep
exactly.
it is. So in my life, I've had 3 surgeries and I'm actually about to have a 4th one. And that's just because it's a condition, it's a chronic condition
recurrent,
that never goes away.
And that's one of the reasons, because I had endometriosis. I guess I still have endometriosis probably. Yeah. But at the time, they told me the only way for us to know for sure is to have the surgery. Yeah. And when I asked, okay, if we do the surgery and you remove whatever you have to remove, will that be okay? And that's it. She said, no, like you may have to come back again because there is a regrowth of the condition, right? How did you know that you had to go for a 2nd and 3rd
surgery?
Yeah.
Through pain.
Through pain, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So again, each doctor I have seen throughout the years have been more and more advanced in their knowledge of endometriosis. So I saw the first one, he was like, if you want kids, have them back to back, 1, 2, 3, which was never my intention to do anyway. The next doctor was like, cut out bread and wheats. And then the 3rd doctor was like, cut out gluten. So each doctor I've seen
have something
else. The only thing that they do promote a lot, and it's not necessarily my thing, is a lot of medication. Yeah. So I personally have researched and looked as much as I can because I wanted more of a holistic approach to it. So I've tried to change my diet based on my own kind of research and a bit of a doctor's advice here. So I'm not on medication.
Okay. And this happened before having kids at all?
Before having kids. After my 2nd operation, I had my son.
Okay.
So I had my 1st operation, and then when I was due to have my son before, took about a year. and then I miscarried.
Okay.
But it was good because I obviously had, I know it's a terrific situation, but I knew I could get pregnant.
Yes, so that's yeah.
And then after that, it was a few months, I got pregnant again with my son now, who's 10.
Okay.
I didn't plan to have such a big break from one child to another. I always wanted like 3-4 years when they go to school, then I'll have the next one. But I think life just got in the way. So we moved from London to Manchester, then Dubai. And during that time, you know, with endometriosis caused by stress.
Yes.
So, once you have a lot of stress and moving up and down, I think once I got
But
to
were
Dubai,
you trying at the time, or you
we
just...
were on and off trying.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we were on and
like
off trying,
consistent.
but we was, no.
Yeah.
I would say when we got to Dubai, then we were like, let's give this a go. And it was the best time because I was settled. And, I wasn't working at the time, so my body was not in stress.
Yeah.
And I then had my daughter.
That's amazing. Do you want to share a little bit, because I know that there's a lot of moms and a lot of, women now trying, and it never really comes up, the endometriosis, as something that can impede from you falling pregnant, and then we straight away push people to IVF.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit more, how did you come to find out that, and what kind of tips or things that you can give somebody who has a bit of symptoms of endometriosis?
The main first sign is obviously extremely heavy periods, menstrual. So that's your first clue, and how many days it lasts, how heavy it is.
Yeah.
They're the first signs. Secondly, the doctor cannot tell you. So a normal GP doctor cannot confirm this. So even though you're continuously going back, they're like, try this, try that. They are not specialists in the field. So you have to book and go and visit a gynecologist.
Okay.
That's the first step. Doesn't mean that they'll know endometriosis, but they will have a specialist field, and there's a bigger team then to identify what it is. And when I saw the gynecologist back in the UK, that was the one who said, this is what I think you have.
Okay.
And that was when I was 25, and I've always suffered since. I started my period when I was about 14, and I've always had extreme. And I've tried different medications, different flow. But once I knew what it was, I still didn't know what to do. So I took their advice and I went on medication initially, and I felt it was, in a sense, sometimes making it worse. Or it was just
What did they prescribe you for that?
So say like the pill. So more contraception type. So they say it's like hormonal imbalance. They're trying to balance out your hormones. And ones that basically stop your period. So it helps it, but it kind of suppresses it, depending. There's many different medications. So I don't want to say them all, but it just suppresses, it just stops your period. So it hides the problem. It doesn't necessarily cure the problem. So when I went to the gynecologist...
Did you take the injections? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, and it brings on early, like menopausal symptoms. Which is crazy, because you're 13, you're the hot flushes. So that was a drama in itself. I didn't actually last on it very long, because I didn't like how it made me feel. It made me feel out of my own body, like kind of depressive. And it was just, that's just not my character.
For me, when I took them, when I took the first injection, because it's 3 months. And when I took them, the first month I felt amazing, because, no period. Oh my God, hallelujah, finally, you know. And then the second month I felt weird not having a period. And like I felt bloated. Like nothing fits anymore. I feel like hot flashes, as you say. Like
my spots were coming through. It was just so many different. My body was just didn't feel like my own. So that was probably like I said.
So you didn't stay on them.
I took the one injection.
Okay.
I'm actually on it now.
Okay.
The same injection, and I said I will try it again 1 month, because my doctor was like, look, it's a different name. I can't remember. I'll try and get back to you. You can put it in the comments. But the injection I'm on now, I feel completely different. I still have hot flushes, but I don't have that depressive kind of feeling that not myself. And that was the scariest thing for me personally. But when So once I knew that I had endometriosis, like I said, I personally just did research. I did a lot of research on my own. There's a lot more case studies now.
Yes.
So if you do it yourself, and every doctor's different. Every doctor will have their own method. And sometimes you have to find the right doctor that connects with you. I've changed gynecologists because I didn't feel they were listening to me. And it was a very, clean cut. This is what you got. You need to have an operation. If you want to get pregnant, you need to have IVF. You need to, and I was like, whoa, I didn't feel like they were listening to me as an individual.
Somebody was telling me about endometriosis, because even when I went through it, I couldn't even grasp what it is. For me, it was like, okay, it's something that will go away. It's not. And then this girl, because she suffered so much with her endometriosis, she told me it's called the unseen disease.
Yeah.
So it's like you're suffering, nobody knows what you have. They need to do these surgeries to go and dig and see if you have it or not. And nothing really helps.
No, it's very invasive.
Yeah, it's very invasive.
It's hard to... I'm glad they call it a chronic disease now. They never used to. So before it was...
condition. It was a condition.
Yeah. And people would think, I've had it at work, even in the family, sometimes they think you're being
dramatic. Exactly.
Everybody has a period.
Yeah.
But it's the extent and the extreme that used to be really difficult for me. I think even now, people are only like, I'm starting to understand now what you went through. It's been a while.
It's been a long time. Yeah. So for me, it was the same, to the point where I was doubting myself and I was thinking maybe I'm overreacting.
Yeah.
Even though I was vomiting from the pain and, but I was the self-doubt, because everybody else is telling you it's normal to have painful periods, And I still have it, even if I'm still postpartum. I didn't have my period yet, but when I had my second, I had very painful periods still. So I'm guessing I still have them.
Yeah, I find after having a child, and I think this is why I'm due for another operation. After the 2 years, and it was the same with my son, 2 years later, it comes back in force because you haven't had it for so long.
Okay, so that makes sense.
It comes back because your body's adjusting, the hormones are all over the place, and I felt like it's just extreme. I think it's slightly different than when my son slightly suppressed a little bit more, and that's probably because I was more conscious of my diet.
Okay.
Yeah. So endometriosis, which I haven't said, is actually the lining of the womb that shreds. Every time you have a period, it shreds blood and it kind of splatters within your inside.
Yeah.
And it's a sticky substance, so then it can make your organs stick together, your bladder or your ovaries can stick together. And that's where sometimes the extreme pain comes from, your lower back. When it comes to the diet, it's because your endometriosis actually feeds off of it. So the sugars, it feeds, and that's what makes it more extreme. Gluten, there's so many things that it actually feeds from.
So did you have to change your diet, or you go on and off on these things, or
did you see normal? I had changed my diet, so I limit my tea, no sugars. I used to have 2 sugars.
Yeah.
Now I have none, and it's good because now I limit how much sugar I have with everything else. I will have a sneaky cake here and there, but I am cautious of what I eat. I buy gluten pasta.
Okay.
And as much as possible. And it's easier when you convert your family.
Yes.
So, because when they're making white rice, I want it. I like, basmati white rice, and I'm like, I have to have the gluten-free range, or the bread, I have to have wheat. So but I guess
everything is in moderation. If you eat one off, is fine. But if that's your main source of, food.
But if I eat it continuously when I go, for example, if I go on holiday for a week, a cheat week, I feel it when I come back.
It, yeah.
Yeah. So because I'm obviously absorbing all the different foods. So that's probably the signs to kind of look for in endometriosis, and definitely review diet to help you overcome it as naturally as possible.
And with your second, did you struggle more to conceive, or was it as the same as the first one?
I probably would say it was the same. So when I came to Dubai, I saw a specialist, and obviously by this time I already kind of know what to look for, which is good. I was a bit more personal knowledge. So I went to see a gynecologist, and he was like, I think it's going to take time for you to get pregnant this time. You're further along, you have scar tissues. And so I want you to see an IVF. You don't need to go that. Yeah, you don't need to go that route, but can you just see an IVF specialist? So I went to see the IVF specialist, and I just, again, one of those doctors that I just felt like was, you need to, that's it, IVF is your route.
Trying to sell you.
Yeah, it was more of a sell than what are you actually feeling or going through. So I left that appointment and I was just like, no. And I'm very spiritual in a sense. And I was like, as I did with my first, I'm going to leave it in God's hands. I'm not against IVF, but that would have been my last option. And I just felt in my soul that I could still do it.
I mean, let's normalize IVF, because some women do really need IVF treatment. You know what I mean? And I also one of the reasons why I started the podcast, because I want us to talk about everything. It's fine if you're going through IVF. It's
some
normal.
People have surrogates.
You know what I mean?
People,
I feel like it's we're so lucky today to be able to have all these options.
Yes.
So how did you feel when you said no, I'm not going to go for this?
I was no, not doing this. And I had a doctor. I was going back to the original doctor, but me and my husband obviously had this conversation, and we were in agreement. And when I went, by the time I had it a week later to go back to my doctor to kind of discuss it further. And but seeing the IVF, I saw my doctor, then the IVF specialist a few days later, and then when I was revisiting, I was actually revisiting to tell him I was pregnant.
Wow.
So despite two doctors looking at me, sending me in the IVF route, I was
You were pregnant
at that time.
Oh, wow.
And he was able to, at that time, see the baby on the scan, very small. Unfortunately, again, I miscarried at 11 weeks.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear.
So I've had a couple of miscarriages, but that was the worst because we had got further along and I had heard the heartbeat.
You're almost so
I was like,
weeks.
So I think that was the hardest miscarriage I've ever had. But then obviously I was like, I can do it by myself.
Yeah.
It took me time to mentally and emotionally get over it. But we started again trying maybe 9 months later or so.
Okay.
And then that's when my daughter was then born. So it didn't actually take that long.
Yeah, that 9 months is nothing.
Yeah. And she wasn't born, she was conceived, I should say. Yeah.
In between, did you change anything in your habits or?
Again, I was just really strict with my diet. And I got physically
active
more going to the gym. For me, I like the gym. I'm just not religious. Yeah. I would love to be. I'm trying to get into routine each time. But I was religious with it, diet and gym. And I mentally and physically felt good. Yeah.
So now you have a gap of 8 years.
Yeah.
Between both, right?
Yeah.
So do you remember both birth the same way?
Yeah, they were both extremely different. So my son, his birth I had an easy pregnancy. But when I went to have my birth, it was a very traumatic one.
Really?
Yeah. So
you want to share a little bit about it?
Yeah, I don't mind. So I planned to have a water birth. And he was due on time, like his due day, 2 days after he was born. But during the labor and I was in the bath, my legs started cramping up. So I had, at the time, it was one of my best friends and my mum were in my suite with me. And they were both kind of massaging my legs because they were really cramping. And it was at the critical time when I was due to push. And I was like, I just can't, my legs. So I'd been in the bath maybe 30 minutes already.
Uh-huh.
And then the nurse, this was back in the UK, bear in mind, but the nurse then was like, this bath is one of our smaller ones. It's a small bath. So we're going to run the next bath for you because technically this wasn't for your size.
Oh my goodness.
Which I never knew there was different size baths.
Really?
Yeah. So
I didn't know either. I thought it was just
generic size. Yeah. So within that motion, they've ran the other bath, which was in another suite. And as I got up, I just felt my son
dropping.
I felt the weight of him dropping.
Wow.
So then went round to the other suite, and as the bath was not finished, and then he was coming, he was here. So I had to then give labor, and it was the most, I'm assuming it was my first one, but the pain was, I think, beyond what it should have been. And I delivered him naturally and everything like that. But afterwards, I then was told I had a 3-degree tear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was the extent. So I literally gave birth and then I had...
So you didn't have any unmedicated, like no epidural, nothing? Like,
no epidural.
Did you have the gas? Or?
I had gas in there, but by that time I gave birth, I had nothing. He was here, so it was nothing. And then I obviously had to have my child and was rushed straight to surgery.
Oh my goodness.
So then I had that. So that was the whole recovery and the whole, just the mental, and it was a lot. It was a lot.
Did you have the time to bond with your kid? Like, did they put
straight
skin to skin?
Yeah, as they were kind of organizing the surgery, I put him straight in my chest, and then I was like, gave him to my husband, and I was like, do not leave him, do not take your eyes off of him. So for him as well, which we don't talk about enough, the mentalness of men, because for him it's his first child. He didn't have the same dynamics as me as carrying.
Exactly, yeah.
And he just got thrown into this.
Yeah. I mean, for us, we can feel every step of it. Like, we know what's happening, and they're just like watching.
Yeah.
And they feel like useless because they don't know, like, they cannot help you with the pain. They cannot help you push. They cannot help anything, So
they're just observing at that moment. But then he got thrown into the deep end when he was then having to deal with this baby, my son.
Do you talk about that with him? Like,
I think it took us a couple of years. I think a couple of years later, and when I heard, like, I didn't know he got left in a corridor with our son in the baby basket. And he was like, I didn't know, they didn't put me in a room, they didn't put me anywhere, I have this newborn. So I didn't know for a couple of years that had happened to him. So he had his own, when we look back, we were like, oh my God, it was actually traumatic.
Yes, it is.
Experience.
And how was the recovery? Like, did you recover easily after
sitting on a donut for a little while? I think it wasn't too bad. Yeah, I just followed the directions. And back at home, we were lucky we had midwives come to our house at that time, only a couple of times. But even the process of having a child in the UK and Dubai is completely different.
Yeah, so the second one you had her here, right?
And it was a great, despite I was a high-risk pregnancy, I had an amazing doctor, Dr. Anne Phillips, and she was with me throughout my whole pregnancy.
What was the high risk?
The high risk, because it was obviously the endometriosis and ensuring I wouldn't miscarry. And then I had my placenta had not moved. So then they...
placenta previa. Had that totally. But it went up after?
Mine didn't.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, wow.
So then I had to have a cesarean.
Yes.
So then that is probably the panicky stage, because I didn't want the cesarean. I really wanted to, which most mothers do.
Yes, of course.
So please.
So you had both breasts. It's like so you know exactly how both processes are.
Benefits and negatives and positives. So I went through that, and it was nice. It was emotionally better in Dubai because you have the one doctor.
Yes.
So you bond with that person all the way through.
I know in the UK, like whoever's
there.
On duty.
Every scan is a different person. So you don't get that time to bond. And they even change shifts while you're having birth. So it's it's a whole different. But here, that side of it, it was.
And how did you feel when you knew that you're gonna have a C-section? Was it like a planned C-section from the beginning, and then?
Not from the beginning. Probably when I was maybe 8 months. Okay. So it gave me time, and I went through the emotions. I was panicking. I was like, because it just wasn't in my birth plan.
No.
I went once I kind of settled, and I think I was more reassured because I had the one doctor.
Yes.
And then she caught COVID, because this was during COVID, a week before it was planned to happen. And I was like, oh my God. But again, luckily in Dubai, I was able to meet the new doctor.
Okay.
In the UK, that wouldn't have happened, but in Dubai, I was able to meet her a week before my due.
So you felt comfortable?
I felt comfortable. And then I had the C-section, and it was so quick. And so even though the recovery afterwards is longer than natural birth, But the process, I felt like I wasn't drained. It was just, it's a whole different feeling of emotions. You're in the room a bit more. And you can obviously hear and see a lot more. You're not, I felt zoned out.
I guess because I had emergency C-section, so it's like also a different way of having a C-section. But I guess it would be more comforting to know, like, okay, I'm going to go into this and, you know, the steps, what's happening. And it's not like leave it until you see what's going on. You know?
And the panic, I suppose, in the room when it's emergency. It was so calm. It was like, right, we're doing this at this time. I went in on time, and they were speaking to me. So it was different. And I was like, okay, it changed my opinions of. It really did. Yeah.
And how was the recovery?
The recovery took. I made the recovery a little bit longer because obviously they say do not do this, do not do that, and I felt I wasn't doing too much, but I think I was, and it slowed down the process a little bit
of healing,
of the healing. But once the doctor had said that my scarring wasn't healing as good as it could have been. And she was like, it's too much pressure. You're putting too much pressure on your body. But once I had known that, then I became more strict. And I think in all, probably internally, 3 months for it to actually heal inside. Probably 6 weeks where you can start, getting back into the swing of things.
Do you feel like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves? Like, especially you have a kid that is there waiting for you, and you have this newborn, and with your C-section, do you think like you put a lot more pressure on yourself if we're like, you're first and you don't have another kid to attend to? Or...
Yeah, because you don't want your first child to feel like they're being left out, or the second child's getting all the attention, and especially because I had such a big gap. He had us to himself for so long. And I go to all his football, between me and his dad, football, karate, all these sports, every assembly. So I think I missed one assembly and I felt so guilty because I'd never missed one before, but that was during the recovery session. Dad was able to go, but it's just mums.
Yes, mum guilt.
Yeah, mum guilt. And then but I involved him. I used that,
So what did you do to like help him know that he's going to have a sister? And like, was there something, like, I know, like for me, like I tried few things where they tell you like buy a book and read the book for them and explain like.
He was a lot older and he had been asking for a sibling.
Okay.
So
there you go.
There you go. He did ask for a brother, but so it was a lot more easier. So during that time, just like the comforting of the belly, I involved him of that. So I feel like he was bonded with the baby along the way. But professionally, as an expert, it definitely include it in your child's plays because you've got younger children. So, for example, role play with dollies in the bath, reading the stories. And again, you can include them with going to the shops and buying baby grows and stuff. And you might think they don't understand, but they do. They do, and it helps. It helps. And refer to the baby as your sister, sibling, brother. So they already connect. They feel that.
I mean, with Lucas, because he was a bit older, he was 4 years old. So we used like some books. We read some books for him, like I'm waiting for my brother or my sister. And we didn't buy dolls for him, but he went on all the scans, so he saw the baby, so he was like prepared mentally to it. And then we do this thing where when the baby comes, he brings a toy, a gift. So your brother or sister brought you
I love
gift.
that. I do that, and I also do it opposite.
Yes,
the sibling,
he brings.
the baby
we
brings.
do the same as well. But with Chloe, it was trickier because she was very young. Like she was not even 2 years old. She was a year and a half. And with her, I bought some dolls. And so when she saw the baby, she thought it was the
dolly.
So for her, that's the connection she had. But I think, that helps.
It just helps them to, the whole slowly, gentle, and quiet, and the baby, it gives you time to practice. When the real baby does come, they're already more prepared to.
You're not giving them like a new instruction; they know already. Like, they relate.
And then once the baby starts moving around a bit more, they resonate. Oh, you're not going anywhere.
No, you're staying.
Yeah.
So, how about you as a mother? How did you feel like going from one for so many years to two at the same time, managing everything at the same time, and being an expat here in Dubai?
Yeah. Firstly, I think physically it was completely different, having that gap. With my son, I was really more proactive. I still am, but and I was working full time, so it's kind of back and forth. And with my daughter, I realized, it reminded me I'm getting older because I wasn't as physically as quick as I probably once was. And then just navigating, like you said, being an expat and not having, my mum got COVID, so she was due to come out and she couldn't get to come. I had my best friend come who was at my son's birth, so that was quite comforting. And my mother-in-law came over to kind of help within the house and stuff. So it kind of helped a little bit. We didn't have any extra help. So just navigating that, not having, I suppose, like my siblings. Yeah, because I'm one of 6.
Wow.
And so, my brother and my dad popping up with flowers or things like that. Like, they're just, or my sister just heavily, like, we're both into it when we have kids, like, even now, like, even though with the distance. So that alone, that was emotionally hard. I felt very homesick at that point, and we had been here just under 2 years. So you're already you're still So it was navigating that. But I will say it was a blessing because when I had my daughter, it enabled me to meet people like yourselves. And before that, because when you're an expat, sometimes it's hard to connect. But when you have a child and you're at the baby groups and the play groups, I think that's when I actually started to find friends, people that I call like a friend now. So that it was a blessing once I was allowed myself to get out and enjoy.
So now that you have your second here and then you're going through what is something that you think you wanted to know before having this second baby? Is there anything like now that you think about, you're like, okay, I wish I knew this before?
Obviously, I have it built up, being an expert. Not that I think I know everything, I really don't. And I'm constantly learning. But you feel like you have a plan. And even with my second one, I thought I would have a plan. And it was just a reality check, even having the C-section, that it doesn't go that way. I got reminded again, like it will go how it goes. And just to maintain like the mentalness of it all and not to put too much pressure on myself. And I probably did more so because it was just me and my husband here. I didn't have people to lean on. So then I'm really like, you got even more to prove to yourself, you feel like. And you have my son, so I'm trying to do too much. And I think, again, with my second, you can't do too much. You can't put too much pressure on yourself. And I think, and I get it, because some people, there's loads of memes out there, and each child you have, it's the more laid back you are. And I think I get it. Like my third child, if I had a third child, I would probably be a lot more chilled, a lot more chilled. And I didn't think I'd be as having the first, maybe because it was the gap. I still felt as stressed as I did the first time. In a sense, but probably was because of the gap. And
I guess every pregnancy is different, but like the motherhood changes you with each birth. Like I think you're a different person from the one, like for me, like personally, when I see myself the first time mom and the second time mom, it's not me right now. Like I'm a total different person when it comes like to so many things. Like, obviously I have like my roots and my, my beliefs but a lot of things have changed and shifted, as you say, like a lot more relaxed on so many things. Like I wouldn't leave my son like this ever for an hour. No way. Like I'll be like, but for now I'm able to just like focus on what I'm doing and then be able.
And every child is different. Some children, my son was happy to go on a flight and he likes the adventure. my daughter, she likes the adventure, but she wants to know what we're doing. Even though she's only 2, where are we going, Mummy? Like, she follows more of a routine. My son was more spontaneous with it. She likes to I can see already that she's more that way inclined. So it's adapting to that as well. So I have to give her that reassurance before, like, we're going to go swimming now, and then we're going to go to this, and then she's fine.
So when you had only your son to look after and you moved here, and what were you doing in that period? You were working with the Think Nursery at the time? Or?
No, when I first came here, I took a break. I was 20 years experience in early childhood education, and I would work in nurseries and schools in the UK.
So how did you feel when you stopped working? It
was the biggest thing. It was really hard for me because I've always worked for myself, even being in a relationship, and I've been with my partner since we were 18, but it's the first time in a sense I've been fully reliant on him as well, because we've always both been independent and come together. And just mentally I enjoyed it, but I felt lost because I enjoyed the break, because I was like, I've never had a break where I can just enjoy the moment. And it was good because I was able to explore Dubai and with my son and get him settled. So I was happy for that.
Yes.
And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And that was when Think Nursery was born.
Okay.
So
how did you come up with the idea? I mean, obviously you've been in the industry for the longest time, but how did you think that people needed this in Dubai?
So I often, when I would go to birthday parties or meet people, a lot of people would, once they hear my background, if they wasn't asking me, potty training, behavior management, sibling rights, they were asking me for, information. Then they were asking, what nursery could you recommend? Can you recommend a nursery in this area? And at that point, I hadn't really explored it. I didn't have a small child. And I initially was going to get a job as a nursery manager, and I got offered quite a few jobs. And I just felt, visiting the nurseries, I thought I could use my expertise that little bit more. I felt there's some nurseries here that really could do with the support to improve what their services are. Then I realized there was nowhere for parents to find a nursery other than social media. And I thought, okay, let me create something for parents to search. And then just early years in general, it always gets sometimes left as the afterthought, and it should be the first thought, because the first 5 years are most important.
Absolutely.
And that is still not...
It's funny you say that, because back home in Canada, we have platforms, for the government, obviously. It's called 0 to 5.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the name, 0 to 5.
Because it's so important, and it's what we put into our children at that age group is how it implicates how they're going to be as adults
in the long run.
In the long run. So how we communicate with them, what we expose them to, helps with their confidence and stuff like that. That's our imprint in the child. So for me, it was like, okay, this is still...
And I remember when we met, that was the first question that I asked you, even though I didn't know what's your background, we were just talking.
Yeah.
And then because at the time, because I was going to deliver my third, and I was thinking about nurseries, and I told you I'm thinking maybe to put her in nursery. I'm not sure. Does your daughter go to a nursery that I asked you? And then you told me that, I do. Oh, okay, really?
Yeah.
It was
by chance. Yeah. And I've met so many mums by chance in conversation.
But it's a brilliant idea, because as moms, even though I had multiple kids, I still want to ask what's the best nursery. And then even for my daughter, she's so different from my son, personality wise, learning wise, etc. And then I don't think the nursery that I did put my son into, she will fit into it.
Yes. Yeah.
Or I don't think I want to put her in nursery right now, maybe later on, so many things changes. So having somebody who has expertise in that, who has a platform where you can go and see all these things.
And we're not linked. We don't own a nursery.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
We're not doing it for sales or we want to educate parents to first and foremost know what to look for. Because I've gone on tours, like we offer tours for parents so they can have an expert go with them, because you don't know what you're looking for the first time mums.
I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm going for the vibe. Like, is it clean? They're gonna talk nice to me, to my kids. You know, that's what I'm looking for. Like, I don't even know what I should be looking for.
So whereas we're looking at the resources, the health and safety, the communication between staff and child, we pick up on everything. And it's not for me to say this isn't the choice for you. But so when I have gone on tours with parents, it's like, okay, you pick which ones you want, which is often the closest one to their house. And then I go there and I will say, okay, I'm going to take you to one, and it might be 10-minute, 15-minute drive. It's one that I know that has a good, it ticks all the boxes that you're looking for. So you would have told me what you're looking for, and I would be like, I think this will fit you. And then I will take you, and then I'm like, now decide, because sometimes you stick closer to your home, it's not the right fit. Go 10 minutes down the road, it ticks all your boxes. And parents just don't know. They don't know what to look for. You don't know what the expectations are. And it comes back to not understanding how crucial early years is.
Of course,
So.
I mean, for me, I remember with Lucas, because I went back to work and flying, and I had to put him in nursery very early on. And for me, it had to be Montessori. Like, I cannot be putting my son in any type of education basis, And then at the time, I had to travel like around 30 minutes to go and drop my son to nursery, just because that was the only one available at the time, But now there's many.
But it's also, there are many, but then there's is it real Montessori? Do they have the real resources? Same with the early years foundation stage. Is it real? Are they authentically using it, or is it just the title?
Exactly.
Are they equipped? Are the staff qualified enough? So there's so many different angles and topics that come with that and what you're looking for. And it's all about the child, really.
Of course. Do you feel like that having 2 kids and made you take that decision to go for building your own business?
Yeah, I think I've always worked for someone else, and I kind of ended my career in the UK as a project manager, because I would get called to go to nurseries for big established companies and open them. So I'd launch their opening, hire their staff, and get them kind of their foundation so they can continue on their own. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I love going in and improving somewhere and bringing it back up, the quality. But then it wasn't for me, if that makes sense. It wasn't a personal, I would leave them tick the box, but I felt like I grew something for someone else. And it just got to the point that I wanted to do something for me and reach a wider audience. I'm helping one nursery, but at the minute I have the opportunity to help all of them. So it's using...
But also, this is very important because you're doing both. You're helping the parents because you're the face for the parents, but you're also helping the nursery. So both sides, you're there. While if you're working for a nursery, you're more like focused on the nursery.
Right? But I think being a mom makes me care about the parent side as well. That's what makes me think, and that's why I can navigate with the both. And anyone that comes on our team, I like to have parents that have that, because then they have a different passion.
Of course,
And they care for both sides.
Okay, Latoya, let's do a little quiz that I do with every guest here. The first one I know already, but I'm just going to still ask you. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Reusable diapers or disposable ones?
Disposable.
Baby-led feeding or puree?
Baby-led.
Morning routine you cannot give up?
Oh, I would say a bit of TV. Like, I find that's my me time. So when everyone's gone to bed.
So your me time, basically. Sports or arts?
Oh, I don't play enough sports anymore, but sports.
A show that you recommend to moms to watch, like, could be anything.
It's funny, but Working Mums on Netflix, it has me in stitches every time. So. Relatable.
Co-sleeping or crib?
Oh, a crib.
Sleep training or no sleep training?
Sleep training.
Pacifier or no pacifier?
Oh, okay. So I'll give a bit of explanation. I think...
Did you give a pacifier to your...
I tried. And they both wanted their fingers.
Okay.
So out of the two, I prefer a pacifier because I can get rid of the pacifier. You cannot. It's harder to get rid of fingers. So in that sense, I would prefer a pacifier.
And the golden question, The best podcast for moms.
MumsChronicles.
Of course.
Of course.
Latoya, can you tell me a little bit about how you manage the guilt that comes with every single mom? Especially in your case, you're working, you have like 2 different gaps of age where you have to attend different things. So how do you manage all of that? Is there something that helps you doing it all?
I think with my son, it was a lot harder because I felt like I was dropping him to nursery.
Okay.
Coming back and picking him up at the end of nursery. Sometimes it was the last one being picked up.
Yeah.
And then I would then go home, do dinner, bath. So that time was just like, it just feels like a blur.
Yeah.
But what I would make sure our family holidays or our weekends were always planned that we would have that quality time.
Yes.
But I constantly felt like I had to do that because of the mum guilt. I had to compensate because I didn't have him as much. With my second, obviously I wasn't working, but then I started my own business. It was reason why I did it because then I can kind of manage my own time. Yes. So even though I'm still working probably as much, it's still manageable. So I'm there for bedtime. We have that wind down time. So I switch off at 4:00 in the afternoon so I can cook dinner and the kids are amongst us. And then I put them to bed and then I go and have my me time or go back to work, either or either. So it's different. My guilt is different now with this one because now my guilt is more giving them time.
The same way.
Yeah. And I'm kind of preparing my son because when my daughter starts going into, clubs like my son at the minute he does.
Yes.
Yeah. So when he starts having clubs like she's having, she has clubs like he does, then, there might be a day where I have to try and split myself into 2. They both have it at the same time. So I'm already feeling guilty about it and we're not even there. So in preparation, and having a husband that works away so much, it's hard because it's not a case of he can go left and I can go right. So,
So what would be something that you would do, let's say in your case, because your husband is traveling all the time, say if both kids, they have something at the same time, what would you do in that case?
I'm going to have to do half and half. So obviously at the minute, I'm fortunate enough now to have someone help. I never had any help until 6 months ago.
Okay.
And it's not a compensation of me, but at least I can then go, okay, one child gets an hour and the other child gets an hour. I'm only human. And I've just, at the minute, my son's old enough to prepare him for that. So we have these discussions and we kind of laugh about it. He will say to me, what are you going to do? And I've got football and Jasmine's got ballet. I'm like, well, you'll get half the time and she will. So I'm preparing him for that transition because he's used to seeing me sitting there. Jasmine is easier transition, but at the same time, I want her to have the same.
Of course, because you had your son for the longest time and then, you feel like you gave them more the first one than, that's what I feel personally. Like, I feel like I gave Lucas so much attention, then now I feel okay every time I should spend more time or should do this,
I think that's something every mom has is time, and the more kids you have, my sister and my sister-in-law, my sister has 4, both my sister-in-laws have, one has 5, one has 4, so I'm like, how do you do it? How do you spread yourself? And I'm one of 6, and then I look at my mom and I'm like, how? But one thing I take and from my mum is that she would do things with us individually. So mine and my mum's connection was shopping. So we would do that alone and go and do a few bits of shopping. So alone time. So that's something I do. Like me and Jasmine do swimming now by us at swimming lessons. And that's just our thing. And me and my son will go to the movies and stuff. So that's probably
But do you think, I know, when you have your own business, it's 24/7. It's not, you're not, you're working more than you worked before. But would that, safe to say, it's something that gives you more flexibility around your kids?
It does if you manage it. So you have to be self-disciplined. So probably there's been points where I'm continuous and my husband's like, look, this was meant to be, allow you more family time. So I had to kind of check myself. And then now I ensure that the work is incorporated in my lifestyle. So I manage it as best as, unless things come up, but as best as possible, I manage it in my lifestyle. And I also find my son is more, I don't know, I feel a sense more proud of me doing my own thing. Because he sits next to me.
Does he understand exactly what you're doing?
So as we were building it, the website and things like that, he's sitting there with his laptop next to me. He's hearing all the languages and the process. So when I'm like, oh yeah, I've just done this or I'm doing that, he gets excited and he enjoys it. I think he sees more of a self-achievement, and I don't know if that's because I'm doing it at home and he's doing it with me, whereas before I would go to work, he wouldn't see what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
He just knew I was gone.
Yeah. Is there any advice or something you want to say to a new mom?
I think the biggest advice I always say, and I believe, is going back to don't be too hard on yourself. Like, no one is 100% perfect. No one is the same. We've had 2 different pregnancies and journeys and traumas and there's information out there. Podcasts like this, platforms like mine are there to give you the information, but how you use it, do what's best for you. Like, we're not here to judge. No one should be judging you, and how you choose to bring up your child and this and that. And it's a learning curve.
Yes.
It will change. So what you think now, it will change. It will completely change. And your child will change it. Yeah. So just, don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah.
That's like me, like, nothing, if it's not organic, I don't want to hear it. And now give him a McDonald's fine today. Give him a Happy Meal, please.
Give me half an hour.
All right. Thank you so much, Latoya, for coming today. You want to have a closing word?
I think just, be proud of where you are right now. Like, everyone's got their own struggles or daily. You could be in the best place and position you are right now. Enjoy that moment, because everything's up and down. So just be proud of where you are. Take a moment, take a breath to just be like, look what I've accomplished. Look at the children I've made, or look at my business I've achieved, or managing the both. So even on a hard day, just stop for 5 minutes and just reflect.
It's the small wins.
It's the small wins.
Yeah. Thank you for coming today, Latoya.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in Mums Chronicles Today episode, and I'll see you in the next one.